If you want a shot at the world strap, you gotta work your way up the ladder like everyone else. Turnbuckle Club had an opportunity to go one-on-one, toe-to-toe with the ace of belts, the champion of championship belt making. Here's part one of our interview with Mr. Dave Millican. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another installment of the Turnbuckle Club. My name is Jeremy again, and today our special guest is the man behind World Championship belts that you see on TV today. His clients include the WWE, TNA, ROH, UFC, and Bellator. He's been recently featured on CNN Money for his trade, and he's the heavyweight champion of championship belt making. Here is Dave Millican. Dave, how are you today?
Good, Jeremy. Nice to be on, man.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you very much for joining us. As a child, we all grew up creating our belts out of Bristol board and cardboard, but you had the opportunity of designing real belts. Can you explain how the torch was relayed from Reg Park to yourself?
Really, I had just been a fan, growing up and trying to make my own belts and stuff. It was, I guess, been pretty well documented, and really just I would have never asked Reggie for help. I just wanted to order one of his belts about 20 years ago, and over the course of our conversations, he found out that I made my own belts, and he asked to see some of the work and basically opened some doors for me and made some great things happen for me. And then along the way, we became not just friends, but business partners. And, from there, as time has gone on, I've just kind of probably taken over the lion's share of the work. And, it's a different time than when Reg was in his heyday. It's we're social media runs rampant, and I think because of that, I'll probably get a little more notoriety than he got in his day. And it's not that it's any more deserved; it's just different than our time.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into the next question. I mean, you mentioned that you had an opportunity to talk to Reg, but these days everyone is so accessible. How in the world did you have a chance to speak to him, or how did you interact with him at that time? I'm talking 20 years ago.
In and around the wrestling business, which I was, a lot of the guys had Reggie's number because Reggie was the go-to guy if you wanted the championship belt. So I finally was just able to, after seeing his name in magazines and things over the years and knowing that, that he had wrestled and refereed and that he really was making belts on the side for a long time, I was able to finally get his phone number.
Interesting.
And there was no website or anything like that back then, so it was just a matter of calling and talking to him and telling him what I was interested in and going from there.
Yep. Now, without delving too much into what you do, I just want to ask you, in a quick, comprehensive way, how do you describe the process of how these belts are created? I mean, so the artwork is created by the promotions, and then walk us through the tradesmanship piece of your job, which is so unique. I mean, the science, the math, the machinery work.
Yeah, there's actually a few different processes we use, and you're right. I don't get too far off into those, but I mean, we do everything from 3D work to just basic acid etched belts, which is what Reggie was known for all those years, and what we still primarily do. But to also casting work, which we've got a number of cast belts that are part of our artwork library now. But as you mentioned, the companies create artwork. That's true some of the time. In the case of WWE, they like to create their artwork now so they can own it entirely and use it for licensing and that sort of thing. However, a lot of our clients come to us and they have, some of them have an idea, some of them have no idea what they want, and we'll start. And my partner, Rico Man, will generally take over at that point and work within their budget, create artwork. We go from there. And most of those belts, again, are going to be just the old etched belts, and we'll, we go from there into the etching process, and of course there's everything after that, from cutting metal to polishing to applying the studs on the back to attach it to leather, plating, which can entail anything from copper to gold and nickel. I mean, it's just all over the whatever you want we can do. And of course all the leather work, some of which is pretty basic and some of which is very ornate, and all very time consuming.
Yep. Were there any promotions that you designed the belts for? I mean, any one that you can remember off the top of your head?
One of the current clients we have that we completely designed the belts for is Bellator MMA. That's our That's our design that they're using. And as far as wrestling goes, I mean, all the Ring of Honor belts are our designs. New Japan, a lot of the New Japan stuff, IWGP belts are our designs. And of course, WWE even goes back and uses our classic. They, a few years ago decided to bring back our classic Intercontinental belt.
Yeah,
which is our design.
I strongly support that. I'm a huge fan of all the old school belts. I wish they still kept them around.
Me too.
Yeah, and I'm going to be asking about that in a moment. So the belts, we can say sometimes it's their intellectual property, and then they collect the royalties. Would that be the same for let's say the MMA promotions or the or even other organizations like Ring of Honor if replicas are sold?
Yeah, in the case of I'll go to UFC, who decided to go the factory-made belt route after working with us for years and using our design for that. However, that's all their property, and the reason it being they brought us the base design to work from, and yes, we expanded and improved on it, but so they sell their replica belts and they collect the royalties. In the case of the WWE stuff, it's kind of like anything that's more current is all theirs, and anything that like such as the Intercontinental belt, then we collect royalties on, as well for everything from video games to the toy companies and that sort of thing. So I mean, it's really just all over the board, and it's a case by case basis as to who's pocketing and collecting what.
Mm. Now, with all the clients that you have, do you have any downtime?
At the urging of a doctor several years ago, I started taking weekends off because I used to work 7 days a week. So unless there's a rush deadline, which sometimes there is, that has me working through a weekend, I try to take weekends off. I do get downtime next week as an example where I'm delivering a belt there for our annual Confidentiality Club reunion in Las Vegas, and I'll be delivering a belt there, and I'll be there for a few days. So of course that's downtime for me. It's certainly not a bad life. I can't complain.
I see. Now, what's your personal favorite belt of all time? For me, it was the Winged Eagle belt and that classic WCW title that Ric Flair made famous, that big gold belt. What about yourself?
Well, those are two of my favorites that are near and dear to my heart. I really can't name one. Even last year when WWE.com asked me what my favorite was, I said, "Can we make it 10?" Because I couldn't do one, but the ones you named are near and dear to my heart, as are classic Intercontinental and the classic Dome Globe NWA title before the big gold belt.
Oh yes.
And speaking of big gold belt, my partner Dick Bourne has written a book that I've helped with a little bit about the big gold belt. That's going to be released very soon. Anybody can kind of follow my Twitter or go to thebiggoldbelt.com for details on that. But it's going to be a far and away just like our 10 pounds of gold book about the Dome Globe belt. Well, this one is going to kind of blow that one away in terms of the size of the book. Yeah, so I wanted to go on and throw that out there while I'm talking to you.
Oh yes, definitely. We were going to ask about that, but we're definitely here to promote these books, and we're as aficionados. I remember spending hours and hours just looking and admiring belts as opposed to reading books. I would look at your belts. What's the scoop on Ric Flair's belt during the 90s run? Remember when it was brought from the WCW or the NWA at that time, and then it showed up on WWE TV? They mentioned that he took the only belt, and then there was like this $25,000 deposit and everything. Did these belts really go up that high?
Yeah, in the case of that, I mean, the big gold belt was one of the most, it was made by Silversmith, and was one of the most expensive championship belts of all time. The deposit actually goes back to the old NWA title deposit, and it wasn't just about a physical belt, which, didn't cost $25,000 to make back in those days. It was really, it was about the physical belt, but it was also an appearance bond. It was to make sure that the champion would be where he was supposed to be, show up and do business when it was time to do business. And Of course, when it comes in, especially in those days, I mean, $25,000 is a lot of money today. Think about how much money it was, in the 70s and 80s, and so generally the host promoter that, or at least that was my understanding, the host promoter that, for instance, Eddie Graham would sponsor a champion and he would put the money up, and the champion would show up, do what he's supposed to do when it was time to do business, and that way everybody was happy because nobody wanted to forfeit $25,000.
Yeah. Now, does it bother you when they use your belt as a prop, or when they throw that beautiful title into a river or bayou? Or I remember Mr. Perfect. He took a hammer and he broke and shattered that beautiful Winged Eagle belt, or spraying the NWO on your gold belt. How does that make you feel?
Well, yeah, I can't take credit for making the gold one. Reggie made the Winged Eagles going back that far, but I've seen plenty of it done to my work, that's for sure, and plenty of it done to Reggie's work. And I used to really, really cringe when I would see that sort of thing. And the older I get, the more I look at it, and I just think of it as job security, because that's the more they destroy them and the more they beat them up, the more I'm either going to have to refurbish or make new ones. So I just look at it as job security, and I try not to take it so personally. And it does definitely sting a little bit when I see something that's brand new. I'll give you a great example. Both the new WWE title and the WWE World Heavyweight Big Gold Belt were brand new when they hung them over the ring and drilled holes through the back of them to bolt them to this thing that they had for a match recently. And that stung a little bit. I was like, geez, all you had to do was just snap the belts up there over the ring. They didn't have to drill holes through them. They did anyway. So,
oh, yeah. Now, did you...
Anyway, it stings a little bit, but then at the end of the day, I look at it and I think, well, if they don't do stuff like that, then, I'm not going to be nearly as busy.
Yeah, that's true. Job security indeed. Did you have to recreate that belt that Alundra Blaze dumped into the garbage can during that Monday Night War era?
No, I was already working with Reggie back in those days, but I really don't remember if there was already a new belt. I think there was already a new belt. As a matter of fact, that might have been when they had switched over to using another belt maker. Reggie had a bit of a falling out with WWE back in '96. A couple of years into my working relationship with him, and of course where he went at the time I followed, and so we weren't. They had belts that lasted for another year or more after that, but for a while, until they came back to me about 6 years ago, we had nothing to do with the WWE stuff.
Now, without asking you to reveal too much, what can you possibly have a falling out over? Is it like just the business deals, the way profits are distributed? Is it like, what would you...
The business was changing, and this was in a time when we really hadn't gotten a handle on all our royalties and that sort of thing, and the business was changing, and I think Reggie was asked to sign a contract he didn't want to sign, and at that point, before that, Reggie had done this for many years and had never ever signed a contract on a belt, shortly after that, our late business partner Ed Schumann and myself sort of kind of, cornered Reggie and said, look, this is the way it's going to be. Everything's changing. And not only is it changing, but so it's going to benefit us that it's changing. And we're going to have to sign some of these contracts. And we're going to have to do some of these things that maybe in the past, Reggie just did on a gentleman's agreement. And the business had changed. Reggie, for years and years, had ignored royalties that he should have been collecting on toys and things like that because, it just never occurred to him. And he never saw... nor did any of us, for that matter. It's certainly not a shot at Reggie. None of us saw the business evolving to what it's become today, and all the great opportunities with video games and toys and that sort of thing. But the few that had been done at that point, Reggie really had kind of missed the boat on standing up for himself, and so we formed a company to protect us on those fronts and to make sure that we were getting compensated for the things that belong to us.
Absolutely. Now, what was the trickiest belt to create? There must have been some belts that were a little harder to create than others, right?
Yeah, even with some assistance being farmed out, the current WWE title, Very, very intricate, 630 stones, hand centered on the base plates. And all that milling out, all that cutting and stuff. It's a very intricate belt. But, another one would be the current IWGP belt, which is just a monstrous belt. I keep a replica of it right here on display in my house because it's just such an impressive piece of work. But it's very, very intricate, very complicated. It's 4 layers thick.
Wow.
So I mean, those come to mind off the top of my head as intricate and complicated belts.
Now, how many versions are there? I mean, is there one that's meant for TV broadcast while there's another for maybe public appearances?
Some companies, WWE, as they usually do, were the innovators there, and they started that, and then really still they're the main ones that do it. There are some MMA companies now that are trying to make sure they have backup belts, but WWE, leading the way as they do. They in this high def era, they have belts that travel with talent and belts that are used for television, and even the ones for television take quite a beating, but not as bad as the ones. Sometimes you'll see some of those. You'll see the talent with some of the belts, and you'll see a little difference, and you'll see how much more beat up they are because they're the ones getting dragged to the airports and whatnot, and all the traveling, and you'd be surprised at the toll that even that takes on a belt.
Now, how heavy is a title belt? I mean, you mentioned that the IWGP belt was pretty big. How heavy is a belt like that?
Oh gosh, that belt's probably a solid. I mean, I'd guess it's 15 or 16 pounds. I would believe anyway.
Really?
I really don't. I really don't weigh them. I mean, yeah, it's in that 15-pound range, and you think, well, that's not too bad. But when you're lugging it in, day in and day out through airports, and it's adding to your baggage, and you got plenty of baggage already, it's
Oh, it takes a toll.
It's a little hefty.
Yeah. Now, here's the question: what departments are contacting you from these organizations about creating belts? Like who? It's not Vince McMahon that's calling you, right? Or like who would contact you from the promotion about creating belts and designing belts?
That varies promotion to promotion. There's we deal with all kinds of people that occasionally we'll even hear from talent with a request, but generally it's just office people that have WWE has a department that handles that sort of thing. And of course, you mentioned Mr. McMahon, and McMahon is hands-on and oversees and can veto anything and has. We've made belts that have been approved designs before, but when they got to Mr. McMahon, he decided he either wanted something changed or just wanted to do away with it altogether and start all over again. And that's not a personal shot at us by any means, because it was their design to begin with. But once he's seen it brought to life, sometimes he wasn't happy and just decided that he wanted to go a different direction. So while we deal people in the office, he's still to this day overseeing things, and as well as Triple H and Stephanie McMahon also oversee and a great deal of that stuff.
Yeah. Now, do you have something like a confidentiality agreement with these wrestling promotions? And I'll give you an example. Let's say they wanted to design a new title for that might be specific to a champ, like a smoking skull belt. Although the belt is revealed on a Monday Night Raw, like you'd have to have ample time to create this belt. So, do you sign some sort of confidentiality agreement stating that, hey, you know what, you can't really mention what kind of belts are being created because it might be used for a storyline?
Absolutely, and I have some that aren't written agreements and are just just understandings that I won't do that. And with my time in this business, people know that if I'm asked to keep something confidential, I will. But yes, I do have a confidentiality agreement with WWE. A great example of that is nothing that I just told you, of course, violates that. I mean, any of the stuff that I've put out there, and there's nothing that violates that agreement because it's something you absolutely have to take very seriously. When you're making certain side plates for the new title, or whether you're creating a theme belt. We recently did that last year, even with Ring of Honor and the Jay Briscoe belt. And of course, there was nothing. They didn't want that put out until until the belt was created. And so it goes with a lot of companies, and some of them I don't have actual contracts with. In the case of WWE, we do have confidentiality agreements.
I see. And, WWE is very exclusive with anyone that they have business dealings with. I mean, how did you manage to be the champion of championship belt making? I mean, like every promotion's coming to you, and it looks like you've created belts for everyone. So how did you have a chance to maneuver around that?
Again, I think it's just like anything else, when people find out that you can actually make money, then there are going to be a lot of people that are going to crop up and turn up out of nowhere, and some are legit and some are fly by night. I think really it just comes down to the amount of time that I've been in and around the business, and I like to think the work speaks for itself. I will say this, and I'll give Reggie. This doesn't so much pertain to WWE because of the time that it elapsed by the time I made my own name. But I mean, in the days when Reggie took me on and Reggie helped me out, it was instant credibility. Reggie Park said I was okay, so I was okay, and that sort of you can't buy that. It was tremendous instant credibility, and I'll forever be grateful to Reggie for that. Some of the people that along the way that I've introduced Reggie to in the business, I would always say, without Reggie, there'd be no me when it comes to this business. Could I and would I continue to make belts? I'm sure I would have. But Reggie was the innovator and changed this whole business. And for him to take me under his wing the way he did, 20 years ago or so, and made all the difference. But in the case now of kind of getting the lion's share of the work, I think the quality and the reputation speaks for itself, and I'm very proud of that.
Mm-hmm. And one last question, the final question here is, do you have a story of any talent that specifically spoke to you about creating a belt, and you said, you know what, I'm going to put something together for you? Put something nice, whether it's a talent or even a request from a talent that came through an office person, but something that was a specific request from somebody that's in the business that we would know of.
Well, I think that nothing bigger. I mean, I've made belts for people that I've admired for many years, and in some cases are friends with, like Jerry Lawler. It's pretty well documented. That I come from just outside of Memphis, Tennessee, and I've known Jerry for years. And Jerry actually was the first guy to ever put my work on television. So you got things like that, and it doesn't get any bigger than Steve Austin. And Steve, of course, I've done quite a bit of work for, and Steve's just been tremendous in helping get my name out there. And I guess in some cases it's really out there, but or at least you think it is. And then you see the number of people that he reaches with a couple million Twitter followers, and the incredible public presence that he still has. And he's such a generous guy, and he's such a he throws my name out there, and that kind of credibility is, again, something you can't buy. But as far as specifically making belts, those two guys that are the biggest deals to me personally, on a personal level, because I'm such a fan of their work, and it's great to be friendly with them and have that relationship. But just doing work for specifically those two guys has been kind of the biggest personal deal for me.
Yeah. Who is your favorite wrestler of all time, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
Man,
I guess if you were to list your top 2 or 3, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, being from the area I'm from, of course, I'm a huge Jerry Lawler fan. A lot of people today, a lot of the younger generation might not have seen the best of his work. Mm-hmm. But I would encourage them to, if they haven't, to hit YouTube and check out some 70s or 80s Jerry Lawler stuff. But again, I'll throw those names out there. I'm a huge fan of Steve Austin's work, and it's not. I was even before he was a friend of mine. So I mean, it's not even just that sort of bias. But of course, I mean, man, you start talking great wrestlers. How can you leave out the Nature Boy, Ric Flair?
That's right, the Nature Boy.
Shawn Michaels. So I mean, again, you limit me to one, I'm probably going to say Jerry Lawler because that's my home bias speaking. But when you start talking about my favorites, those guys that I just named, Shawn Michaels, I mean, another one just incredible. Bret Hart. I can go on and on forever, but those are the guys that I look to that I'm just a huge fan of.
Well, I'm certainly...
Chris Jericho. I've said this before very recently, and I'd be remiss not to say it now, but I always hate it when Chris Jericho goes away, because to me, Chris Jericho, if you can get such... For Chris Jericho, it's the perfect link, and I think maybe Triple H as well. These guys are the perfect link for me to the current stuff, but yet also the classic style and the ring generalship that that I'm such a big fan of. So I think I'm always pretty sad when I see that Chris Jericho is going away again. So I'm a big fan of Chris Jericho.
Definitely a great entertainer, and he's a multi-dimensional entertainer. What did you think about him winning that championship title when he was crowned the first undisputed champ in that triple threat match? Or when he defeated the Rock and Steve Austin that same night. Did you think he should have been the guy? I mean, there's a lot of opinions on that.
If I'm such a huge fan of Chris that I'm trying to choose my words carefully. I don't think anybody should have done it at that time. That was my call. I don't think anybody should have beat those two guys on the same night back in that day, in that era when they were still just so red hot. That said, if somebody was going to do it, how could it be anybody better than Chris Jericho? I mean, so that's my take on it.
Yep. Here's a debate, by the way. So you're the booker, and you've got one of your nicest belts on the line, and it's the main event, WrestleMania, Hogan versus Austin. Who goes over? And you're Vince McMahon in this case. You're the guy making the final call. Who's going over as the greatest of all time?
And what time frame? What year are we doing? We're doing this like in Steve's heyday.
Oh, I see. You got to pull that one, eh? The time frame. Fine. How about this? Around WrestleMania 18, when it was when Steve Austin was, I guess Steve Austin was around, and Hogan had just come back, and he was a part of the NWO.
I have huge respect for the way Hulk Hogan changed this business, but if I'm looking at it, that ends with a kick and a Stone Cold Stunner and a 1, 2, 3. Very
nice, very nice. And in closing, we just want to tell our viewers out there that if they want to find more information on Dave Millican, you can visit Dave's site at davemillicanbelts.com, or you can email him at mmbelts12@aol.com. I want you to just tell us a little bit about your upcoming projects and your book, and once again, anywhere else we can find information on you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best thing to do. Follow me on Twitter at Dave Millican, and I'm usually putting anything current that I can put out there on there. Actually, I update that much more than I do my site. I've gotten really behind with my site. It's not my web guy's fault. It's my fault. I'm terrible about sending the pictures and that sort of thing because I just get so behind. But everything pretty much, if it's pertinent, I'll throw it out there on my Twitter. Of course, hoping to do a big site at DaveMillicanBelts.com pretty soon. BigGoldBelt.com is also my newest project, and again, I don't want to take too. I did help out. I was happy to assist, but the credit goes to somebody, Dick Warren. But check out the BigGoldBelt.com, and I think that's it, man. I think that's the main things I'd like to cover.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Dave, and we wish you the continued success. Thanks again for joining us here on the Turnbuckle Club.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. I really enjoyed it, man.
Okay, have a good one. Take care.
Take care.
Bye. That, ladies and gentlemen, was Dave Millican, the Ace of Belts, the champion of championship belt making, who you can follow on Twitter at Dave Millican, DaveMillican. And once again, this is Jeremy again of the Turnbuckle Club, who you can follow at MMA Educator, MMAEDUCATOR. Thank you very much and have a good one.
Watch out, world, I'm ready to